17. The Transvestite. A significant law appears in Deuteronomy 22 verse 5, which has long influenced law codes of Christian nations. The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto the Lord thy God. The word abomination is of particular interest here. One Greek and 4 Hebrew words are translated as abomination. In this case, the Hebrew word is toebah, which means something loathed, especially on religious grounds. The word is used to denote that which is particularly offensive to the moral sense, the religious feeling, or the natural inclination of the soul. The law here, however, designates the person as an abomination to the Lord. Thus, not the act or thing, but the individual is singled out for this abhorrence. No penalty is specified for the crime. It is a misdemeanor, and the punishment is left to the discretion of the lawmakers. The comments of biblical scholars are of interest. Wright saw it as part of the requirement of physical perfection, the duty to respect and maintain the body as God gave it, without mutilation or confusion. He stated that it is, quote, a law appearing only here and usually interpreted as directed against the simulated changes of sex in Canaanite religion. Evidence of the latter is derived, however, from sources which are much later than Israelite times. It may be that the motivation comes from the Israelite abhorrence of all that is unnatural. Compare verses 9 through 11, exegesis on chapter 14, 1 through 2, though in point of fact we have no certainty as to what lay behind it, end quote. Kyle and Delitzsch are especially helpful. Quote, as the property of a neighbor was to be sacred in the estimation of an Israelite, so also the divine distinction of the sexes, which was kept sacred in civil life by the clothing peculiar to each sex, was to be not less but even more sacredly observed. There shall not be man's things upon a woman, and a man shall not put on a woman's clothes. Things does not signify clothing merely, nor arms only, but includes every kind of domestic and other utensil. The immediate design of this prohibition was not to prevent licentiousness or to oppose idolatrous practices, but to maintain the sanctity of that distinction of the sexes which was established by the creation of man and woman, and in relation to which Israel was not to sin. Every violation or wiping out of this distinction, such even, for example, as the emancipation of a woman, was unnatural, and therefore an abomination in the sight of God. End quote. The law, therefore, forbids imposing a man's duties and tools on a woman, and a woman's on a man. Its purpose is thus to maintain God's fundamental order. A man who allows his wife to support him when he is able-bodied has violated this law. Alexander's comment supported the same meaning. Quote, the divinely instituted distinction between the sexes was to be sacredly observed, and in order to this, the dress and other things appropriate to the one were not to be used by the other. That which pertaineth to a man, literally the apparatus of a man, including not dress merely, but implements, tools, weapons, and utensils. This is an ethical regulation in the interest of morality. There is no reference, as some have supposed, to the wearing of masks for the purpose of disguise, or to the practice of the priests at heathen festivals of wearing masks of their gods. Whatever tends to obliterate the distinction between the sexes tends to licentiousness, and that the one sex should assume the dress of the other has always been regarded as unnatural and indecent. End quote. According to Baumgarten, this law, quote, forbids the manifestation of the primitive unnaturalness and anti-godliness that man, the husband as the original man, human being, should obey the voice of his wife, the derived man. In the measure in which man persists in his estrangement from God, this fundamental error will ever make itself felt, Romans 1, 26 and 27. But still, the wrath of God reveals itself from heaven against every perversion of the sexes, in the perplexing and disturbing results of that widespread and ever-spreading female domination and male servitude. End quote. We have today what Winnick has called the progressive desexualization of people. The goal is increasingly, quote-unquote, the bland man among both the older and younger generations. Man is increasingly made into a neutral creature. The distinction between male and female is blurred. As a result, and not surprisingly, in 1964 the American Civil Liberties Union defended a man against transvestite charges, challenging the law for the first time in 119 years. Moreover, quote, transvestism on the part of men figures increasingly in plays and movies, end quote. Unisexual clothes have become popular in London and among some Scandinavian teenagers. Increasingly, the world and America become, quote-unquote, the country of the bland. Simultaneously, the stage has, quote, created a number of men who were programmed for defeat, end quote, while at the same time portraying aggressive women. In fact, quote, actresses are not only bigger than men at the box office, some are actually taller, end quote. Moreover, quote, although women characters once represented the goal of a hero's romantic quest, today we are getting the woman as brute, end quote. Behind this chaos lie certain ideas. First, the rebellion against God's ordained order is very obvious. The very principle of order is denied. Man seeks studiously to rearrange creation in terms of his own creative mandate. Second, equality as a philosophical and religious faith is at work. All people are equals. Woman is equal to man, and man is equal to God. As a result, there must be in principle a war against differences. Not only unisex, but una-man is the goal, the bland, neutral person. Henry Miller sees the return to paradise only through the destruction of history, meaning law and morality. There must be a time of total destruction, the, quote, time of the assassins, end quote, and the new world can only come when the old world is forgotten. This means a period of anarchy, racial amalgamation, and universal human hermaphroditism, the birth of male and female in every individual, and then the new world may appear. To return now to the law for a fresh evaluation of its meaning, clearly it refers to garments, but its meaning is far broader. The law strikes at the general neutralization of the sexes and the confusion of their roles. The law insists on a strict line of division between male and female as the best and the God-ordained means of communication and love between them. The strength and character of male and female is best maintained by obedience to this law. It was once a strict principle of military conduct to enforce this law in every area. Thus, men in uniform were not permitted to push a baby carriage. It was unbecoming to the authority and strength the uniform represented to do a mother's work. If this seems now a trifling or amusing illustration, the fact is that it is still sound in principle. Its purpose was the preservation of the dignity and the masculinity of a fighting force. At the same time, under pre-World War I standards, an officer was expected to have, as were his men, versatile abilities. Their quarters had to be clean and properly cared for, and the ability to cook was not limited to the cook. The purpose was self-reliance and ability to survive. In the home, the man did no woman's work. In the barracks and in the field, the man had to be resourceful, able, and orderly in his life. The purpose of the law is to increase the strength and the authority of men and women in their respective domains. The strength of men is being men under God, and the strength of women is being women under God. The definition of transvestite thus must be made broader than a mere reference to clothing. It can be added that modern culture has a strongly transvestite character. Here, as elsewhere, it prefers the character of perversion to the law of God.